So I just wanted to cover off the strategy here and where we see the market going and how we're addressing that, and then go into specifically which products fill in which gaps that we've identified. So this is, as a whole business, VMware is customer focused. So this is talking about your end customers, so the end businesses that benefit from our technologies. And the way we see it is that there's 5 ways of addressing this. So there are 5 types of cloud that could be delivered using VMware technology, and they all have different use cases. So on the far left, you have private cloud. So that would be a business's on-premises infrastructure that they own and operate themselves. And next we have VMware Cloud on AWS. So I have had questions from some service providers saying, is this competing with me? And my answer is, no, it's not. It's a totally different use case. And actually, we have some service providers leveraging VMware Cloud on AWS to address these use cases that they would not otherwise be able to, and we'll get into that a bit later. And then, of course, we have VMware Cloud Provider Partners clouds, which you're all extremely familiar with. And this is a managed service, mostly a fully managed IT service, some infrastructure as a service, and some bespoke, some standardized, but there's a huge range of services that come under our VCPP cloud banner. But from an end customer point of view, it's, I don't want to own infrastructure. I don't necessarily want to operate it. Here's the service that I need. Can you just deliver this for me? So that's where you guys come into this picture. And then outsource private cloud. And this could also be done by a cloud provider partner where they operate a dedicated environment for the end customer on their behalf. And then on the far right, native public cloud. So this is Azure, AWS, Google Cloud. And we include this under the VMware banner because many of our products are looking to be hypervisor agnostic. So things like NSXT, for example, can manage native Azure instances. VMware Cloud on AWS integrates natively with many AWS services now. Cloud Health that we just acquired, deeply integrated with all of Google, Azure, and AWS. So we don't disregard that route to market, I suppose, and that use case. And there are always going to be times when, for the customer, it is better to go with one of the hyperscale clouds. Sometimes it's better to go private cloud on-prem, and a lot of the time, it will be better to go with a cloud provider partner. And as a cloud provider partner, you can offer all of these solutions, except for the far left, where the customer just does it all themselves. But for VMC, cloud provider partner cloud, outsourced private cloud, and native, as a service provider, you're in a position to be able to offer any of these outcomes to the customer. So I feel like I dragged on a little bit there, but really wanted to hammer in how we view our portfolio and our different partner programs. Essentially, it's just customer first. How do we deliver the outcome that they want? So then delving deeper into our service provider partners, from your point of view, what we want to help you do is drive revenue. So this could be increasing your current lines of business or building new revenue streams. Anything that will build your business is what we're focused on. And then on top of that, increasing efficiency. So this could be removing manual labor effort, cost optimization from a technology point of view, anything that makes it easier to deliver the services that the customer's asking for. And then on that point, being able to deliver any service that they ask for. So being flexible without introducing unnecessary complexity. Which then leads me to where we see the general market going. From a customer point of view, we see more and more end customers asking for not just one outcome or one service, but a whole raft of things. So I want a bit of AWS, I want a bit of on-prem, but I want you to manage it. I want all these things. And from a traditional hosting model, we're not seeing many requests for just hosting by a service provider partner. And that was traditionally where VMware kind of sat and where our service provider partners sat, and it's still good business, don't get me wrong. It's still growing, but it's not growing as much as it used to, and it's not growing as fast as higher level managed services. So what can you actually deliver on top of the hosting platform? And that could be anything from professional services that a lot of you already do, I know, to container services. I'm pretty big on functions as a service. I think that's going to be huge in a few years, but not yet. But there are many that we can potentially build together to satisfy what the customer is actually asking for, which is multiple cloud environments, high level of complexity, and I want you to handle it all, and the customer doesn't want to take any risk. That's what we see. They want everything, and they don't want to pay for it, and they don't want to take the risk, which is difficult in a traditional hosting model. But we're trying to introduce tools that help you become more flexible and able to accommodate a little more. Okay, so what does that actually look like? This is essentially what I just said. We're just building different tools and different ways of using them so that you'll be able to service the customer in whatever way they prefer. So you have your tenants, they don't necessarily need to know about what's happening on the back end. They don't ever need to directly interact with VMware technology if that's what you prefer. But whatever they ask for, we want you to be able to deliver it. And that may involve your cloud provider environment, your vCloud director environment, for example. And that may integrate with VMware Cloud Services, things like Workspace ONE, which is VMware hosted software as a service. Automation services will all be SaaS products, and then using them to integrate to other cloud environments. So many customers these days are saying, I need an AWS presence, or I need an Azure presence. Whether that's a justified request or just to get the tick, it doesn't matter, because we want to help you be able to deliver that. And so this is what it would look like from our point of view. We still need our cloud provider partners to manage the customer and deliver the service. We just build the tools to help you do that. And when I get asked, what services are you talking about? It's essentially anything the customer asks for, which may be disaster recovery, maybe backup. Container services are growing pretty quickly in Australia, but most commonly it's networking services and multi-cloud management. So I want you to manage my AWS instances and my VMware. I want a web server in AWS, but I want my database on-prem, and I want you to deal with that. So we're building tools to make that easy, because that, without some kind of automation and monitoring toolset, is not a scalable business. It just takes too much manual labor to manually manage all these disparate cloud services. So that's what we're trying to help you move towards. So that's the general strategy. So that's what we're moving towards. And now I'll go into how we're actually delivering that. I'll talk about first from a cloud provider program point of view. So looking at your vCloud Director hosting environment, what we're doing there. And then I'll split into the MSP side of things. And I'll spend most of the time looking at what MSP services we're working on, what's available now, because I think that's where a lot of the confusion as to what VMware is doing comes into play. Because we're all very familiar with the vCloud Director and the cloud hosting environment side of things. MSP stuff, it's relatively new and growing very quickly. So I want to clarify what's actually happening in that space. So as I mentioned, vCloud Director is available today. Well, later today, San Francisco time. So by tomorrow, I suppose, you'll be able to log in and download vCloud Director 9.5 and have a play around. And the major differences with this release are NSXT integration. So NSXT is the new version of NSX. We basically have split them into NSX-V, which is tied to the vSphere hypervisor, and NSX-T, which is hypervisor agnostic, is the major difference. So NSX-T is the product that VMware will be moving forward with. And VCD now has cross virtual data center layer 2 networking as well, which has long been on the roadmap, and many people have asked about it, and it is finally here. So there are some good networking capabilities introduced there. And then we have a full HTML5 experience for the tenant user, so the admin. So what you would see as an admin still has some of the old UI present, but for a tenant, it's a much better tenant user experience now because they get a fully HTML5 user interface. And then there's some improvements also made with role-based access control from a multi-tenant management point of view. So that's a big release for us, and that's out today, so give it a go. The other thing related to Cloud Provider Program is the Cloud Provider Pod. Now, this is not GA yet. It's still in very early stages, but we're told that it will be released by the end of October. So this month is when we're expecting the Cloud Pod to be released. And what this is an automated way of deploying a vCloud Director stack. So the products that you see here, vSphere, NSX, vSAN, is the software-defined data center layer, the virtual infrastructure. On top of that, vCloud Director, login site, the usage meter appliance, vRealize Orchestrator, and vRealize Operations, and the vCloud Director Extender plugin can all be automated, the deployment of these products. And they're deployed in a VMware validated design methodology. So it will deploy the best possible version of this stack, the design that's been validated by VMware engineering. And this is all customizable. For example, if you don't want vSAN, or if you don't want, let's say, login site to be deployed, you can just configure it to deploy some things and not deploy others. So it's customizable, but out of the box, this is what it would be. So they're the two major releases for the Cloud Provider Program. I wanted to spend the rest of the time today on MSP products and what they are and why they exist and how you can use them as a service provider. But first, I will check out what's happening in the chat. I can see a few questions coming through about hourly billing. Yes, so it looks like Mo has replied, we're introducing chargeback capability in vRealize Operations 7. That is correct. So there are actually two things we're doing in this space in terms of chargeback. One of them is Cloud Health from a SaaS point of view. So that's a cost optimization and cost monitoring tool. And I'll show you what that looks like. That's very early stages in terms of its integration into VMware's portfolio. But as Mo mentioned, there will be chargeback capability in the next version of vRealize Operations, and that will run on-prem in your cloud provider environment. And we are told that that will be feature parity with the old Chargeback Manager product. But back onto the MSP side of things, as I mentioned earlier, our view of the world is that customers want multiple clouds and a hybrid cloud strategy. And so we need to accommodate this with a hybrid cloud strategy of our own in terms of what products we're releasing. And then as complexity increases, as you increase the number of sites and the number of different kind of cloud environments, you need some monitoring and operational and automation tools to reduce the complexity and make it essentially a scalable service is what we're trying to help you build. So from an operations platform point of view, that's what we're trying to do. And then from a developer point of view, it's, okay, now we have this hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environment. How do we actually deploy applications? Where do we deploy them? How do we monitor application performance when it may be a hybrid application. So there may be some components sitting in AWS, there may be some sitting in a VMware Cloud of some sort. How do we monitor that when it's not all sitting in one place and it's not all being accessed from one place either? So we'll look into that. I won't cover all of these products today because we've covered things like Workspace ONE and Horizon in the past. Log Intelligence I won't cover, but I'll quickly just say now, it is a SaaS version of Log Insight. So it's a log repository. You can just point all your log files at it, it will ingest them, and you can search through them for troubleshooting purposes. But everything else here I'll cover off at a very high level, so we get a picture of what everything is and how it fits together. So I would be remiss if I didn't start with VMware Cloud on AWS. It's the talk of the town at the moment, just being released in Sydney. And what I wanted to point out is what are the actual use cases for VMware Cloud on AWS? And these are the 4 that we most commonly see. So data center extension being, I've run out of space in my on-prem data center and I don't want to buy new hardware. Can we just build a layer 2 extension to a cloud environment and start small there and scale up? So that plays to the elasticity that's built into VMware Cloud on AWS, starting at 3 hosts and being able to scale up in minutes to whatever is required. And then that ties into disaster recovery as well. So if, let's say, a customer needs 10 hosts for disaster recovery, but only 4 hosts for their mission critical applications, we could provision a cluster in VMC on AWS that's just 4 hosts, and we can set it to scale up automatically in the event of a disaster in the on-prem environment. So the mission critical applications can fail over with 0 RPO, and as hosts are added, the rest of the workloads can be failed over. And what this means is that customer doesn't have to invest in a fully sized disaster recovery site from the get-go. They can invest in a minimum for their mission critical applications and then scale up as required. So there's a disaster recovery use case there. Cloud migrations pretty much speaks for itself. I think we all understand this by now. It's, I don't want on-prem infrastructure. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Take it all to the cloud. And then the questions around, is this suitable for VMC or is it more suitable for a cloud provider partner environment? So one of your hosting environments. That comes down to what are the actual applications, how much elasticity is required, what are the application-specific requirements. And so if any of you are interested in going down this route of having VMC as an option for your customers, and obviously you can manage this, you buy it through the MSP program, we can talk about what applications are suitable for VMC. And then of course, next generation applications. VMC integrates natively with AWS, so you get all the cool high-level services of AWS, but you get the security and the solid foundation that VMware provides. So the real differentiator for VMC, and the reason I'm focusing on this, by the way, is to highlight that there is a difference between VMC and a cloud provider hosting environment, and they're not in competition. In fact, service providers I've seen go down this path end up winning more business because they're more flexible and can cater to different requirements. So it's the trusted VMware software-defined data center that pretty much all IT teams are familiar with, so there's no new tools. It's going to be familiar to many, many IT teams out there. It's ease of workload portability, and this is common to our cloud provider partners' environments as well. Because it's VMware on both sides, you can just create a layer 2 stretch and have the exact same networks replicated either side. But you do have direct access to native AWS. So it physically sits in AWS. And I've got an illustration on the next slide to show that. And it can take advantage of things like AWS's high-level services, like key management services, container services are on the roadmap. So this is what it looks like. It's the VMware stack sitting on AWS infrastructure in the AWS data center physically next to native AWS. So you avoid egress charges when you use the native AWS services. And there is native integration now to Elastic Block Storage, to relational database servers. Key management service can be used with vSAN now for added security for data at rest. And AWS Direct Connect is integrated as well. So you can use Direct Connect to establish a private connection into your VMC instance. So that's VMC on AWS. I won't dwell on it too much. If you are interested in this, happy to talk about it. There are thousands of videos on YouTube that cover VMC on AWS. I just want to give more of a high-level overview of what the use cases are. So moving on to our DevOps automation services and monitoring service. So this is saying that while we're catering from a infrastructure or software-defined infrastructure point of view to a hybrid environment, we need some tools to reduce the complexity and be able to troubleshoot when things go wrong. So starting with how do you provision? So automation services. Now this is all roadmap. So this is not GA yet. We're told next year is when it's coming. So automation services, roadmap, but where it's heading towards is these three key services. So Cloud Assembly is essentially our automated provisioning and blueprinting tool. So you can write infrastructure as code, deploy that infrastructure, basically orchestrating infrastructure and application delivery. And you can save these codes as blueprints and create a library of services. So once you create a library, you can then deploy this to any cloud. So these are all delivered as SaaS products hosted by VMware, which means they're not tied to any one environment. You can have an application that consumes services from native hyperscale clouds rather. Let's say Google Cloud. You might have a database that you host in your hosting environment, and then maybe some components on-prem. It doesn't really matter. We can provision to any cloud environment, and then using Service Broker, provide governance across these cloud environments. So Service Broker is essentially just a governance tool providing role-based entitlement across different cloud environments as a SaaS service. And then for the developer side of things, CodeStream is our continuous delivery pipeline tool. Essentially it's a pipeline for application testing, troubleshooting, and deployment. So just your classic continuous delivery, continuous integration tool. And this does come with native integration to Wavefront. And Wavefront we acquired last year. It's an application monitoring tool, and we will talk about it right now. So it's cloud native metrics, monitoring, and analytics. What this means is Wavefront can ingest data from your application and application performance and how it's being used across different cloud environments. It will ingest this data and it will use its machine learning capability in the background to identify patterns and alert you when there are anomalies to normal performance. So let's say, for example, CPU utilization has peaked. It will say, it will alert you, CPU utilization has spiked. It will call out other metrics that may be correlated to this spike. It will call out geographic locations that may have been affected or may have caused the spike. And it will basically say, here's what happened. Here are a bunch of other things that may be related. Here are some users that may be affected. Here's a geographical location that may be affected. So it basically helps developers troubleshoot their code. Or if it's not a code issue, then go to the infrastructure guys and say, I've actually checked the code. It's an infrastructure problem in this geographic location, or it's this set of users. So it will expedite that troubleshooting process. It will call out patterns that would take a human days to recognize, and it will pick them up in a fraction of a second. So it's quite a powerful tool and again, delivered as one of our SaaS products. So this is available now, but it's gated. So you need to come talk to us if you want to use it. You can't just go download it or subscribe to it. But if you do have customers with development teams, this could be a good differentiating service for you. So we've spoken about automation of app deployment and then how to monitor it with Wavefront. Now we'll get on to cost optimization. So Cloud Health, I mentioned earlier, we acquired last month. Very successful company in the cloud costing and optimization space. And essentially, this will be a cloud cost optimization tool going forward from a SaaS product point of view. So like Mo mentioned in the chat earlier, we do have chargeback manager capabilities being introduced into vRealize operations. That will be targeted towards individual data centers. So where that may be useful in your cloud provider environment if you are only using that environment, or if the applications running there only run there and they don't run in other environments. Cloud Health, delivered as a SaaS product, will be can integrate very deeply with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and of course any VMware environment. So it's designed for if you are provisioning into any environment outside of your cloud hosting environment, Cloud Health would be something to check out, and we'll see that being more deeply integrated into VMware's portfolio over the coming months. So I think that will be really interesting for us and really reduces the complexity and provides a very great value proposition for you, because you can use this tool to say, this is what this exact application is going to cost you if you run it on AWS. This is what it's going to cost you if you run it on our cloud. And these are the reasons why you should or shouldn't provision to certain environments. So as a visibility and monitoring tool for the end customer, it's great. For you as a tracking point of view, so tracking what your customers are using. I've just been told my camera is on as well. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Can you guys see my slides all right? Can someone message in the chat if you can see my slides? I just want to make sure Zoom's working. Yes, okay, you can. Okay, let's move on then. I mean, I think I have quite a pretty face, but the slides are prettier. Okay, so that's Cloud Health. And that covers DevOps Platform, our automation services, and our cost monitoring and performance monitoring services. So the reason we're going down this path is reducing complexity of a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environment, helping you build these services and then actually scale them so you don't end up wasting all your time troubleshooting different cloud environments, figuring out where an application performance issue may be coming from. Then, as we move towards this kind of hybrid cloud model, networking becomes more important than ever, especially from a wide area network point of view. And we'll talk about the context of that in a second. And then also from a application security point of view, when applications are running in multiple environments, they might move between different VMware environments. Maybe some parts of an application run in different places. So securing full applications and having an application-centric outlook becomes important, as opposed to a infrastructure-centric outlook that we've had in the past. So at a high level, this is our networking and security strategy. So you're probably all familiar with NSX data center. So this is the traditional NSX run in the individual data center, providing software-defined networking. And this is the NSXT will be the product moving forward in that space. NSX Cloud a SaaS service to manage multiple NSX instances. So you can create uniform NSX policies across different VMware environments that you manage. A hybrid cloud extension is a networking service for migration and disaster recovery, focused more on situations where a large volume of virtual machines need to be migrated or failed over, or where a zero RPO requirement is there from the end customer. So if they demand zero RPO, hybrid cloud extension can actually use vMotion to fail over large numbers of VMs, and that comes with things like WAN optimization to optimize that failover process. So that's kind of a high-level service for customers that need a really high-level SLA. What we're talking about today is NSX SD-WAN by vCloud and App Defense. So these are both available as SaaS products through the MSP program. And I'll talk about, by the way, like how you sign up to use these products shortly. But first, let's look at App Defense. So App Defense is an application-centric security product. And what it will do is give you a manifest of the application's intended state. So it will show you what good looks like for that application. And it can show you that before the application is deployed, and then it will monitor it while it is running, and detect when an application is compromised. So when it deviates from that predefined good state. And then it can do various things such as send alerts. You can orchestrate some particular response. You can orchestrate a rollback to the last known good state. So the point being here is that rather than having a infrastructure-centric view of security, like something like NSX, and by the way, App Defense uses NSX under the hood, but App Defense is application-centric. So it knows this is everything that encompasses this particular application, regardless of where each component is actually running. And then it can say, okay, I'm going to look at this group of objects, and this is how it should be running, and I'll tell you when it's running in any way that I deem to be not good. So that's a high-level view of App Defense, and this is available through the MSP program as a SaaS product now. Okay, so let's look at the edge and software-defined WAN. So I just wanted to give a bit of context around why we see something like vCloud as important, why is wide area network important, and why is it relevant in our market today? And essentially it comes down to the fact that more and more applications, including VMware's own products, are moving to a SaaS model. And you all as cloud providers know this better than anyone, applications are moving to the cloud. And that's where you fit into this picture as well. But they're still being accessed from branch sites or on mobile devices, or essentially non-locally. So the data isn't being stored locally, it's being stored remotely and accessed over the wide area network. So we're more dependent on the wide area network than ever before. At the same time, more application logic is being pushed down to the edge location. Classic example is self-driving cars. They obviously need quite a bit of logic locally in the vehicle. And then they also need a lot of logic back in a cloud system. And where that logic sits depends on how rapidly it needs to be accessed and actually used. So we also need more control over the edge locations, over what they can do and how they get provisioned and maintained. And then there's a question of performance at edge locations. And when I say edge locations, I'm essentially talking about anywhere where an application is actually accessed and used. So it could be a mobile device, it could be a desktop in a branch office, it could be a car or your fridge at home, your Samsung television recording your conversations. But when we look at things like video chat. That is one application that requires good, consistent performance across a wide area network. And we'll get into how vCloud helps in that space as well. So that's the market context. That's why WAN is important now. And then how vCloud, which is gradually being rebranded as NSX SD-WAN, how that fits into this market context. And essentially, it comes down to simplifying the management of wide area networks. So vCloud is a software-defined WAN overlay. It can sit on top of various traditional WAN connections, so internet, broadband, MPLS, mobile networks. It can use multiple networks. And this is a major benefit of using vCloud from a performance point of view, is that let's say you're using an internet broadband connection and there's a bit of jitter in that connection. It can use the, let's say, mobile network to fill in the gaps in that connection. So where traditionally, if you're using just internet broadband, you would see some lag if you were in a video call. Now you would not see any lag because the gaps have been filled in by the secondary networks, which may be a mobile network, maybe an MPLS. So there's a performance benefit there. There's simplified WAN management, and what that means is you can pre-configure the vCloud appliance, and this could be a physical appliance, it could be a software appliance. You can pre-configure it, then send it to the edge location, and in the case of a physical appliance, send it to a branch office, let's say. They just turn on the box and it's ready to go, and you can control it remotely. So there's no IT capability required at the edge location itself. So simplified management, there's wide area network performance benefits, and there's as a service provider, a control benefit. So you're not dependent on the network owner, which you may currently be or may have been previously. You have control over how your WAN is configured. So there's a benefit there as well. And this is a space that's becoming increasingly important. As I mentioned, people are accessing applications remotely, and these applications require a predictable level of performance. And video is the most obvious example because you can see it with your eyes, but there are many dynamic applications out there that need that kind of consistent wide area network performance to operate properly and give the best possible user experience. And so this is what SD-WAN by vCloud is doing. So that's, from a product point of view, what I wanted to cover today. And I hope that kind of made sense, bringing everything together. Why are we focusing on network so much? Well, it's because customers are demanding hybrid cloud environments. Why are we focusing on software as a service, automation, and monitoring products? Well, it's because once we have all these hybrid cloud environments, it becomes damn hard to manage them all without some kind of automation and monitoring tools in place. So there is that strategy there. This is where we're heading towards. These are the tools we're trying to bring to you so that you can best satisfy the customer requirements as they change over time. So we want to help you become more flexible in what you offer. And if you do come across instances of customers asking for some things that maybe you haven't done in the past, you're absolutely welcome to give us a call and we can help you walk through it and see if there may be a solution there, because chances are there will be, because these days we have a lot of products, especially coming through the MSP program. And as a final note, I would say on the MSP side of things, the three big ones that we're seeing at the moment is vCloud that I just talked about, Workspace ONE that we've had a call on previously, and VMware Cloud on AWS. And they are really solving some unique and new customer challenges in a way that if you take this to market and build a service around this product, can really act as a differentiating factor. And to finish off, consuming these MSP products is relatively easy. So from a sign-up point of view, since you are all cloud provider partners already, there is no minimum commit for MSP products. So you probably are aware that in the cloud provider program, there's a minimum monthly commit. That does not apply for MSP products if you're already a cloud provider partner. So you can go and kind of dabble in some of these products. If you just want to test them out, we can talk you through them and show you demos and things like that. But I found the best way to really get familiar is just to log in and try it out yourself. So to sign up, visit cloud.vmware.com. There's a lot of information there. This is an example for Network Insight. But for the ones that I mentioned, specifically Workspace ONE, VMC, and VeloCloud, I would recommend contacting myself or anyone in the VMware Cloud Services team, and we can talk about the specific use cases that your customers are asking for.